Kevin Kilbane, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian. How are you keeping?
Good. The big guns are in studio this morning.
The what, sorry?
The big guns are in studio this morning.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The big players. Sports broadcaster of the year and all. There we go.
Thanks, Kev.
Where do you want to start?
Where do I want you to tell me where you want to start? I don't know. There's been so much talk in the last 36 hours, whatever it's been since the game. I don't know, it's just ultimate disappointment, wasn't it, from the end? Because we had a crack at doing something special on Tuesday evening. So it has to be all about the Denmark game now, and hopefully we keep everybody fit ahead of that.
You're copping a bit of heat.
Jesus, come on. I make being funny, like, you say one thing. You say one thing and you get a bit of stick. It was a basic error. That's all it was that the lad made that cost us the goal, or led to the goal, should I say. It didn't necessarily cost us directly, but indirectly it did. It's the sort of little things, basic things you need to learn as a kid. If the ball goes dead from a throw-in, you attach yourself onto the deep line centre midfield player, stop him getting on the ball. It wasn't as if it was a quick throw-in that was taken. The ball goes out of play, and there's the ball's thrown back in quickly. There was more than enough time for one or the other, either Collins or Connolly, to get themselves into position. Collins was actually in position to force the ball backwards. That's what it is. The amount of thing that makes it's quite an easy thing, really, when you're learning the game to do that sort of basic thing right. But that was it. It was again. It's something that you learn as a kid. That's all it is. It's no big deal. I'm sure it's something that Mick looks at when you look at finer detail in games.
I was watching it back yesterday, and obviously watch it back with your comments in mind to try and find that nuance in it. Like, it did look like a harsh comment to me because even though we lost the ball at that point, and I appreciate your point, he could have been in a slightly different position, but in terms of the concession of the goal, we had plenty of time to be well set.
No, that was my point though. I said other things led to it as well, though, Adrian, but what it is, you keep everybody behind the ball. That's what I'm saying there. It wasn't as if it was a quick throw-in that they took quickly. Yes, James McClean put the ball out to play, and yes, there was other things that happened after it. But it was something that you look at, minor detail in game, that, look, you get everyone behind the ball as quickly as possible. You switch on as soon as the ball goes dead. You're not playing. We're not playing for fun now. It's one of those things where this is a big moment in the game where if he locks on quickly, if he switches on quickly, it wasn't as if he needed to sprint. All he needed to do was jog back into position. But the position wasn't taken quick enough, and they broke out. In fairness, it's kind of a minor thing, but it's little minor detail that managers and coaches look at that lead to goals, and that's what happened.
Look, a large part of, I guess, the backlash, as you'll have seen, no doubt, when you went online, was because it was singling out Aaron Connolly, and you touched the other players who were involved in the several mistakes in and around that goal, and one of them was James McClean kicking the ball out of play, as seems to be a consistent factor. And James McClean has played probably heading for 70 times for his country now. When James McClean is still doing things like that and giving away possession cheaply and not looking to involve the midfield at times, is he somebody whose position we should be looking at as well ahead of that Denmark game?
Yeah, but it's right. Okay, I'll take your point on it. Of course, nobody wants to kick the ball out of play. But you could see what he was trying. He's actually trying to turn the defence to try and put Connolly in a quick free kick. It didn't go right because he mishit the ball. That's what happened. You're not defending him, but that's what happened. He made a mistake. Connolly made a mistake by not switching back on into position. Jeff Hendrick, or whoever it was, made the mistake by not making the challenge. But all these little things led to the goal. That's what happened. James McClean has been struggling for a while now, hasn't he, in an Irish shirt? Of course he has. I think everyone can recognise that. He's not been producing the form that we maybe saw 2 or 3 seasons ago, and he's not providing that spark, and I think he'll know that himself. He doesn't need to watch that game back to see that was a miss-hit pass that went out of play that led to the goal. But that's the sort of thing that's costing us at the moment. That's why we're not playing well. We're playing within ourselves. There's a nervousness, there's an edginess around the team, and that's ultimately why we are probably in the position where we're having to go and chase the game against Denmark a little bit now, when we could have made it easy for ourselves if we'd have got the right result probably in Georgia.
That nervousness, that edginess that's around the team, is that not exactly what Mick McCarthy was meant to get rid of? That a year into the job, that the impact he would have on these players in the dressing room, the way he could, the mindset he brings, just the general boost he would bring, that is it any better than Was a year ago?
Well, the two performances probably not. I think there was certain spells in the game in the second half against Switzerland, I felt, where there was a little bit of positivity. There was actually some decent play in the game, which we hadn't really seen across the game in Georgia. We look well organised. That's the one thing I would say. But I think as a defence, we've always looked well organised, because we're not going to be too dislodged in the game. But if you're looking for, are we seeing a vastly improved performance from a year ago? I'd say no, of course we're not. But you don't need me to say that. You know the answer to that yourself, Nathan. You've seen enough of the team. In terms of nervousness, that's been around the team, I would say, probably for 10 years. I think we got the initial burst under Mick when Mick came in, the Georgia games and things like this, where we actually, it was positive at home. You're coming away from the game looking for a bit more. Even the Switzerland game at home, the last 15 minutes, you're coming away from the game when you've got that buzz again for an international. But ultimately, it was always going to be judged on these last few games, particularly these last two games. The Georgia game was a disappointment, I think, because I don't think they're as good a side as perhaps they have been, and I think there's a real chance to go to Georgia and get a win. But it was always going to come down to these last two games, Switzerland away, which we never got going. But Mick's probably right in the fact is that that game was not probably going to define us. It was always probably going to come down to that last game against Denmark anyway. And there is a chance, of course there's a chance, but the more that we build up the negativity around it, the more that we build up that, he can't do this, he can't do that, that affects the psyche of the players. No matter what anyone says, that we're all talking constantly about how a certain player can't do this. The players have got to maybe stand up and be counted now. They've got to try and block out what you, I, and what everybody else are talking about, what they're reading, what they're listening to, because I guarantee that's one of the major factors that's affecting the team. And as much as we don't want to say that, look, or we want to comment on the performances and say yes, we're commenting on individuals or commenting on the team itself, we're probably affecting what's going on, and that's. I referenced yesterday what Ronald O'Gara was saying to you, Nathan, about if the team's not playing well, they read more, they hear more, and that's ultimately what's happening now. And players are playing well within themselves, and we're not seeing performances from players at all. No.
Yeah, like in some ways, Kev, when you talk about, like, we're talking now about the last 10 years, right? Like in terms of Irish performances and the range of managers we've had over that time, some of whom themselves would have been driving a lot of that negativity, it strikes me as well. But like, if things haven't changed greatly over that time, and we've obviously had at various points the calls to get rid of Trapp, the calls to get rid of Martin O'Neill, and obviously we know the situation with Mick McCarthy, but if things haven't changed greatly in that regard, right, and they haven't, I think we can all accept that looking at the game the other night. What's the way out of this? Like, we're surely kidding ourselves to think that if Stephen Kenny comes in, he's going to suddenly wave a magic wand and things are going to get better.
Well, I think there'll be at least there is a process in place going forward where we've got a manager coming in that's going to take over, and with the hope that I would think, if and when Stephen Kenny takes over, that we are going to have a manager in place for a couple of campaigns, that he's going to be given time to implement his style, to try to gain the confidence of the players, so they have the trust in him that his methods are actually going to take the team forward. And I have the belief that that's going to be the case. I'm not judging it from 2 or 3 under-21 performances, although he's got a kick out of those 21 players. I mean, we've got a good crop of 21 players. It is. I think we all know that they've come through from the underage system with Tom Moore and the other coaches that they've worked with. So we've got a manager that's going to be coming in that I feel will probably try to change. I'm not saying there's going to be a magic wand that's going to change everything around overnight, and I don't think it's going to be overnight. I think that we might be sat here in a year's time with a few results gone against us, and we might be thinking, is it the right decision? And hopefully that there is trust from the powers within the FAI where they think, well, look, don't listen to the outside facts here, that we have to actually look at a manager here, i.e. Stephen Kenny, that's going to change a system, that's going to actually try to implement something for a number of years rather than just a short-term fix and a quick fix to qualify for the next campaign, because that's what Mick is. Mick's a short-term fix, get the job done, hopefully, and we all hope that Mick does that job, gets us to the Euros next summer, and then with the bounce that we're going to get from those Euros, that Stephen Kenny can take the team forward. That's the only thing that we can look at now. Yeah,
I don't think that's going to be the case next year, actually, now with Stephen Kenny. I know Mick McCarthy touched on it, that he's been fortunate with the way things have worked out, Stephen Kenny perhaps, and I think that's right, because a year ago when the discussion was around Stephen Kenny, it was, look, we always have to qualify. First and foremost, we have to qualify. You know, style of play in that conversation is great, but we have to qualify. I actually think Irish football fans have got to the stage of that when Kenny comes in, there will be a bit more patience, because
we're not qualifying anyway.
Exactly, we're playing it. Shocking.
Sorry, but the FCI are not in a position, though, really financially, to be saying we can sacrifice qualifying for major tournaments.
Well, we're sacrificing possibly qualifying for this tournament.
No, I know. I mean, I think supporters, and I think we all would love to say, well, Stephen Kenny's got X amount of campaigns to implement a style that's going to be beneficial for us in 15, 20 years' time. But financially, the FAI are still going to be looking at, we need to qualify. We have to qualify. And that's the danger, and that's the worry that we would all have, that we go back to a system where it's all about qualifying for a major tournament, when we have to actually look at, because the development of the team has suffered because of that. That is what we all recognise now. We're recognising that that's where we are.